Hello, everyone, and welcome, a warm welcome to the Nordic Women and Data Summit here in Stockholm. My name is Saran Darifi. I'm the project manager of this event, and I'm very pleased to see such a crowd in front of me. I'm really very pleased. So welcome again. Let me just briefly thank cordially each and every one of you for taking your time, for being with us today, to our lovely partners. Can you just give me the clicker? Thank you. Okay. To our lovely partners who have been a great instrument for the successful implementation of this event, to the speakers without whom certainly this event will not even be possible. So in the end of the day, I really hope that you will leave this place with plenty of network, shared experience, insightful and excited presentations that you will be hearing today. Okay, let me just tell you briefly, really shortly, about how and why we envisioned this event and why did we organize it. You have probably been to similar events like this, but somehow we have noticed that they are either too inspirational or very niched on a specific domain expertise. We believe that the new digital, the data revolution era that we are experiencing today cannot be seen solely as very inspirational or niched on a very specific domain expertise. That's the way how we see it. It's very challenging, it's very opportunistic, it's very broad as a term, and it certainly lays all across the data functions of the organization. So if we like to harness the full potential of the new digital economy, then we need, how we have stated in the editorial note, we need all hands on deck. So we need all of these people working with data coming up together. Data management circles, we need the data analytics guys, we need the data science, machine learning innovators, data engineers. So wrapping it up in a good mix of CXO circle and operational levels. The Nordic Women and Data Summit was envisioned as a community event, fostering female data talent in the industry and bringing up together the female data practitioners of the Nordics to create a network and discuss about harnessing the full potential of data in AI-driven innovation. However, at first we added an additional part to the summit. Starting from next year, we are presenting the Nordic Women in Data Awards on the following categories listed here. So the submissions are open to any organization or individual practitioner, and the nominations will be selected by the jury of judges consisting of industry and solution provider experts. Without any further delay, let me pass the floor now to a great lady, and she's the chair, she's the main moderator of this conference, a CEO of a great company helping organizations in improving their analytics and data maturity. Please welcome Linda Borelius from Sparks.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So great to be here. Welcome, everyone. What a fantastic venue. Very nice to be here. Okay, thank you. So I love data. Data is what I know. It's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. It all started for me in '97. I was an employee at Ericsson Radio Systems. We were exporting radio base stations to build out the mobile network all over the world, and I was in export forwarding. I became responsible for measuring transport lead times and on-time deliveries. It was called statistik and mätansvarig in Swedish at that time. Very sexy. That's when I found out that I loved math, stats. I was attending sort of a Microsoft Access training course, and I just loved what I did so much, so I decided to go back to school, study computer and system science. I was going to become a business intelligence consultant, and guess what? I did. And back in these days, this is what it basically looked like. So this being a very traditional data warehousing and business intelligence architecture. So what it was all about at that time, it was standardizing around one platform, coming from one of the mega vendors. And we were still thinking that we could build one huge data warehouse which had one version of the truth that could answer all our questions. Boy, were we wrong. We were very, very slow. So there was a lot of challenges back then. So the tools that we were using were extremely complex. We could build horrible charts like these ones. We were very, very slow, so business users had to ask IT to build reports for them. So IT sort of built these reports to answer predefined questions. The debate was about sort of which platform was the best to use. And I don't know how many of you were around at that time, but maybe you remember these debates about data modeling. So which model to use? That was like the big question, Kimball or Inman. And looking back at this slide, I was like, boy, did we think the world was had some easy answers. So cost, is it high or low? Simplifying the world even back then. So little did I know back in '97 that my decision to pursue a career in data was the best decision ever, because it has never been more important to use and make sense of data. So we live in a digital world, and the digital universe is huge and it's growing. So it's no wonder that making sense of data is a must-have skill today and in the future. So in this digital era, there is a new wave of competition. So traditional businesses are disrupted and challenged by the newer companies. We have those so-called digital natives, the companies that were born during this digital age. We have the Amazons, the Airbnbs, and Spotify, Klarna, to mention a couple of the Swedish ones. And traditional companies have to adjust, right? So they have to transform, find new ways to adjust to a more digital world. So many companies today have realized this, that the importance of data and analytics is very, very important to stay ahead. So I was in the US a few years ago, and I was listening to Ken Rudin, and he was the analytics director at the time at Facebook, and he was talking about the value of using data. So there is a value to using those sort of reactive reporting to change a KPI to answer the predefined questions. But as you go up towards this value chain to more uncover insights and driving impact, this is where you can get the most value out of it. And this is what they strived at. So instead, use data to ask the right questions. And this is what we need to do in order to change a product, service, process, or behavior. So companies that have understood the importance of data and analytics, they tend to call themselves data-driven organizations, or they want to become data-driven organizations. I guess all of you know about this, right? You've heard this many times. I have a problem with this expression, and it sort of implies that it's a binary thing, right? So either an organization is data-driven or it's not, where my experience is more like there are certain areas within organizations that might be data-driven. Areas like pricing, for example, seem to be a bit more ahead, whereas other areas within the same organization can be lagging behind. But definitely we can agree that this is what we want to achieve to stay ahead. So what do we need then to succeed? Well, we need people that are data literate. And not only the data practitioners. So data literacy at the executive level is crucial to really drive value from analytics and data science. So this is the easiest way explained. So data literacy, the ability to read, create, and communicate information. Again, this is not sort of a binary thing. So there is a whole spectrum of data literacy, from the data deniers to the more data savvy, forward-leaning people. And we need more of those people on the right-hand side to be successful. What we also need is diversity. So this is me and my colleagues at Sparks. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders. And ever since we started the company 7 years ago, we've tried to be diverse and inclusive. But to be honest, it's been very, very difficult. So one of our most recent consultants that joined the company only a few weeks ago, her name is Dorothy Che. She's 26 years old. She's been working for 2 years before she joined the company. Before that, she studied math and stats at the university. And we were talking the other day, and she said, well, there were only 6 women in my class. So you can imagine how difficult it is to really find talented people out there. So we're a consultancy, and what we do is help customers with data and analytics. And we help customers make sense of data in any shape and form. Usually, we end up with architectures looking like this. So looks a bit more complicated than the previous slide from 15, 20 years ago. It has a different flavor to it, so it's more best of breed compared to more standardizing around one platform. So picking the right tools and the services for specific customer needs is extremely important. So sometimes we do bits and pieces of this, and sometimes we do the whole thing, sort of recommend the architecture and then implementing it. And even though we've come far in terms of the tools are a bit easier to use, it's also still very complex. And why is that? Yes, because we do have more data, we have more complex business questions to answer, we have a higher demand for speed, and there are many, many, many vendors on the market. Anyone recognize this, right? Which tool to pick for what service? Yes. Maybe someone has seen the slide. There's like 200 logos of vendors out there for different purposes only within this area. So very complex sometimes to use. And around 5 to 10 years ago, everyone was talking about big data. That was the huge thing, right? It was gonna solve all our problems. Everyone needed a data lake to stay ahead. And for some companies, this has been very successful. But for some, it just did not live up to the expectations. So for these companies, the data lake just seemed to have evaporated into the cloud. So there are, in the recent years, we've seen a big shift towards cloud, right? And it's moving really, really fast. So not to mention AI and machine learning. You can't go anywhere today without seeing this, how it's going to impact our lives, it's going to take our jobs. And by the way, why when you Google, will AI take our jobs, all the robots look the same, right? They're like cloned everywhere. So I think maybe they're not going to take all our jobs, obviously, but maybe replace some tasks, augment the work life of an analyst. I also noticed recently, just a couple of years ago, all of a sudden, all my sort of previous colleagues started to update their profiles on LinkedIn. So now, instead of being a business intelligence consultant, they did some Python training online, and now they're sort of a data scientist. And the ETL developers of the 90s are all of a sudden data engineers, and it goes on and on and on to stay current. Right, so, which brings us here today. So there's a lot going on. It's a lot of buzz going on in the marketplace. But today we're going to listen to some really, really, really amazing women that have done this for real, that have true experience, that's going to share what they've done so far, what they're doing. And I am really looking forward to listening to these women present today. So very, very welcome here. I hope we're going to enjoy this day. Very happy to be here. First year ever doing this event.